Hola, ¿tú vives? Pregunta. ¿Vives tú? Pero la tú no la necesitamos, pues. ¿Vives en el campo o en la ciudad? ¿Vives en el campo o en la ciudad? Answer me. Okay. Ask me now. No. Don't use tú. That's an insult. Don't use tú. Usted. I'm your teacher. Usted. Show some respect. Okay. Usted vive is what we normally say. So the question, ¿vive usted en una casa o en el campo o en la ciudad? Bueno, yo no vivo en la ciudad, vivo en el campo. Okay. Second question, second type. Vives, I don't need to say the tú. Vives en una casa, ¿verdad? Answer me. Okay, now, ask me. Assume that I live in an apartment. Not vives. That's tú. Uh-huh. Usted. No, no vivo en un apartamento. Vivo en una casa. ¿Vives en los Estados Unidos o en México? Okay, now ask me. No, not vives. That's the tú form. Bueno, no vivo en México. Vivo en los Estados Unidos. Not bad. Not bad at all. Now, as we were going through the lesson 1.8, or as you were going through the lesson 1.8, did you notice sometimes when words appeared that were slightly different from another sentence, which was almost an identical type of sentence, but words changed a little bit? For example, why is it that we say la ciudad, but we say el campo? Why is it la with one and el with the other? Or why did we say vivo en una casa, but no vivo en un apartamento? Why is it una in one sentence and un in the other? Well, actually, that's an issue which we'll be talking about soon in an upcoming lesson. And that I can relatively easily explain to you, although it'll take some time to master. They're called definite articles and indefinite articles. But I want to explain to you something I think which is far more important than any grammatical explanation I could give to you at this very moment. I will explain things that I think could be helpful for you to know, but for the most part, it's really not through an analytical understanding of grammar that you're ever going to learn to speak Spanish fluently. When you were a child, first of all, an infant, and then a small child less than 2 years of age, how did you learn to speak English fluently? Well, hopefully you understand that the first few months you didn't say anything at all. You just listened. You listened and listened to your parents speak, and you saw different actions that accompanied the things that they said. And little by little you started to associate the word with an action or the word with a thing. And eventually, maybe the age of 13, 14 months, you started to initiate action by trying to imitate the words your parents were saying to make things happen in your life. And of course, initially, when you would say things, your pronunciation wouldn't have been quite right. The order of words, if you actually put together more than 2 words, wouldn't necessarily be accurate either. But your parents, when they heard you first start speaking, they were ecstatic and they thought you were brilliant. They knew, I should say, you were brilliant, right? Okay. So but the parents would slowly start to also correct you, and so over the period of the next year, you would say something, your parents would say it back to you in the correct fashion, and little by little they start to refine your speech in that manner. So listening and then taking the risks on the basis of a hypothesis, albeit as a little child, a very elementary hypothesis, taking the risk of speaking, and then having your parents correct you, and then repeating that action again the next time you wanted the same thing to happen or wanted the same object for yourself. That's how you learn to speak the language that you speak now fluently. Listening, speaking, correction, and then repeating the whole process over and over and over again. And that is the best way to learn to speak another language as well. I could make things very easy for you. I could tell you this word equals this equals this equals this. This is the order in which you put words. But in so doing, I would be ruining your eventual ability to speak the language in a fluent fashion. Because especially when it comes to translation, you'd be passing any thought you had through the grid of your English knowledge first before you could ever speak in Spanish. And that would result in really slow, awkward, stilted kind of speech, which would never approximate fluency. So when you see this symbol in the ULAT, remember that you are to listen very attentively to the statements as you click on them and start to hypothesize regarding why in one sentence a word is slightly different than in another sentence. For example, why do we say una casa but un apartamento? Why do we say la ciudad but el campo? And then once you've made some hypotheses, and you of course have heard enough that you can recall what you've heard in the past, start to speak. Take the risk of speaking. That's when you see this symbol right here, that you're going to speak, and you're going to try to string together words in a reasonable and a rational fashion on the basis of these hypotheses you've formed. And then thirdly, click on the sentence and listen and see if you were correct in the way in which you said it or not. And then last of all, repeat that process as many times as it takes for your speech to eventually become accurate. Well, that's the process you go through in order to learn a language, to speak a language fluently. And there's one more point I want to make, which I think could be helpful for you. It's the word patience. It's the issue of patience as you're learning a language. First of all, if you have a classroom teacher, your classroom teacher needs to be patient with you as far as the structural accuracy of the things that you say. Your teacher at this point in the first year in a beginning class needs to put essence above form. Essence means, is the message itself being transmitted? Are you conveying something that makes sense, albeit it's imperfectly said? If that's the case, if you're conveying meaning to your teacher as you speak, that is a success, and you should be proud of it. And the teacher should be praising you abundantly. And then form has to do with putting words in their proper form and their proper order and pronouncing them correctly. That's an issue of form, and that's secondary. It's important, but it's only once you have the confidence to speak as a result of lots of praise, lots of encouragement, and especially lots of experience listening and then hypothesizing and speaking, then your speech can start to be refined by your instructor little by little and very gently. Okay, that's a word of exhortation, I guess you'd say, to your teacher. Now, as far as patience is concerned, that applies to you as the student as well, too. You need to be patient when it comes to the precision of your understanding of vocabulary. What do I mean by that? As a child, your knowledge and your understanding of words was yet somewhat vague and imprecise until experience gave you a more precise understanding of exactly what the word meant. You used words before you knew exactly what they meant, although you had a general idea of what those words would accomplish. Here's an example. If you're say 16 months old, you're just beginning to speak, and you see a tow truck go down the road, and as you see it, you say, car. Your parents, when they hear you say that, they don't say, what do you mean car? First it's car. Pronounce the R down your throat. Car. Let me hear you say it. Car. Okay, now look. That's not a car. That's a tow truck. What are you thinking? Say it's a tow. Repeat. Tow truck. No. Your parents were delighted with you. They thought you were brilliant. The very fact that you recognized that thing moving down the road on its own power was a vehicle and you called it a car, they thought you were great. They were ready to enroll you in Harvard. That's the way your teacher needs to deal with you, and that's the way you need to deal with yourself. That is to say, be patient until the precise meaning of words and the precise knowledge of vocabulary over time becomes within your grasp. Okay, so for example, what's this mean right here? Well, you may already have figured it out on the basis of the couple key sentences I've given you as context. But maybe your idea of understanding what this means right here is still quite imprecise. Fine. It's far better that you learn the meaning of this word slowly and with no reference whatsoever to English than that you should learn it. I could teach it to you right now. Okay, hacer means I will never do it. At least I'll try to avoid it whenever I can. Because if I tie your knowledge of the Spanish to your knowledge of English and translations in English, it'll result in you thinking in a slow, awkward fashion and saying eventually embarrassing things because words do not line up necessarily one-to-one from one language to the next. Oh, some philosophical ramblings this morning, but I hope some of those thoughts can be helpful to you. Patience. Be patient with your understanding. In time, it will all be very clear. You're going now into lesson 1.9. 1.9 is very straightforward. I don't really need to help you with it. It's a lesson in which you're putting a subject pronoun or a personal pronoun together with a verb, and you're going to be focusing on how that verb form changes based upon what the personal pronoun happens to be. In other words, you're working on verb conjugation. There is a test at the end of lesson 1.9, so in the course of the next lesson, I'll go through that test with you in all 4 of its forms, and I'll help you prepare to take it soon. Okay. Hasta pronto. Adiosito.